Well, welcome back to our long-awaited for regroup of the original cast of Outlaws. Got Shelley, Lisa, Ken, Vanessa, and me, Bill, and we're here to talk about empowerment. We also got into just encouragement last half hour, and the other thing is that there was a really great quote. You all might want to get a sticky note and write this down and place it somewhere. This whole idea of being human, we suck at it, okay? So with that said, what's the game that's available? Whenever you're not good at something, what is the game?
The choice. Choice, you pick a path. You pick a path. What, chocolate, vanilla, choose, left, right, forward, straight ahead, choose. And again, it's all choice. It's all choice.
Yes. So as fun and games as that sentence could be, it could be very disempowering for some people. Like, if that's so, then why bother? What's in it for me? The whole idea of having a life where you're making a difference, that making a difference experience for all that are involved in it, it's a cultural or community function. You cannot make a difference with somebody who is not receiving the difference being made. Mm-hmm. That's the thing to learn from, in my humble opinion. And as good as it gets on our continuum, Ken, when we were off, you made what I thought was a very profound statement. We go through our life experiencing.
Oh, the moment that we have. Oh, the thing about the moments that we miss.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, and actually, it's from Michael Singer, who wrote The Unfettered Soul. And he talks about, I mean, if you think about it right now, there's an infinite amount of moments that are happening that we have no awareness of. All we can have is the moment that we're experiencing in this moment, right now. And we are completely ignorant. His metaphor is like you walk into a warehouse has an infinite amount of boxes on an infinite amount of shelves, and all you have is a flashlight. So that moment is all you've got. So you might as well, make the best that you can of it. Be present in that moment, good or bad or neutral. That's
great. So about the handbook that we all get when we're born. You remember that?
I think I lost mine.
Yeah, I think. Oh.
And then they give you another one when you become a parent. They give you another one when you get married or whatever. So the whole idea is, I love that my daughter's response to everything when she made big time problems in her life was, I can't learn from your experience, Dad. And she was spot on. And, for better or for worse, going through the times, and I know we all who have children or whatever, there are days when they make us extremely happy and satisfied. And then there are other days where, holy mackerel, did I really create this? This is like more heartache than I can stand at the moment. And then the reward is, staying with it and then watching the growth come. And then at the point where there's no longer any conversation that's necessary, living in that reality when children are successful. So when they have that neat thing called good judgment. So with regard to being a human being, and if we stipulate that we're really not very good at it, what does that make available? What does that make available with other people?
I think you had said something last session about where we put our attention, and there's also how attention, and it's one of the quick tools that we give people when we're kind of working with them, especially professionally, is called the 5 leverage points. It's basically the metaphor is, if you think of a pyramid that has a story and a part of the story is written on each side, you don't get the full story unless you look at every side of the pyramid, including digging down and looking at the bottom that's sitting against the ground. So, but we all have like the side we're looking at, and we can seduce ourselves into thinking that's the only side, like that's the whole story. So, so we give them this exercise where, they learn to look at the same situation, whatever they're paying attention through, through 5 different lenses, so that they can get a more complete. So you're basically learning to dispel your own ignorance to a level. And I was having a conversation with a gentleman yesterday who's working with a new team and kind of trying to get them all together in his company. And we were talking about this book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And he stopped and he said, you know what, I just realized, I think even though we think we're looking at the same why, we're not seeing it the same way, and neither of us ever thought to ask the other how they saw that why. They just assumed that the other person was seeing what they were seeing. So it'd be an interesting thing at this point if people just learn the discipline of training themselves to see things from different perspectives without that being a threat, to their chosen perspective. You don't have to lose anything. It can be a both and. So, it's just interesting watching people go through that process, and it's been helpful for most people that have. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
The whole idea of, Shelley said in the last time, your perception, or Lisa did, your perception of their perception. Instead of checking in and spending more language, kind of understanding better until you feel a shift in your body to the point where you actually now know it and have experienced it. That whole idea of being aware on purpose, being available, to really kind of get in and take a look around. I think that's really the power of getting somebody, into a trust. Remember Maxwell Smart and the cone of silence, the plexiglass thing that they sat inside of, that everybody could hear what they were saying, but they acted like they couldn't. Until we have created that cone of silence with somebody, especially if it's a highly emotional or charged issue, that level of trust has to be created until the real conversation can actually occur. Does that make sense?
Well, how often I know a lot of people have expressed to me just in conversation, they're like, how can they not see that? I'm so frustrated with them not seeing that. How could they possibly think that way? But they're not, what they're not doing is flipping that. How can they see that? What is their view, right? So they're pushing outwards and trying to convince someone to see it their way. And it's like that classic Stephen Covey, see first, understand, then be understood, But when you're upset and frustrated and in crisis, that's a hard place. It's hard to do that if you haven't practiced it in advance. In martial arts, you don't get good at blocking a punch when someone starts punching at you. You train in advance. You prepare yourself for a situation that may or may not ever arise, and then you're ready for it, So I think a lot of us were kind of unprepared for the what we've been dealing with lately, Not our fault, just the way it is.
Oh yeah, and it's a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
And I think what last year did too was expose so much. To a beneficial end too, in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I myself, I reserve the usage of the word love. I just think it's too big of a word to just casually throw around. I've never been comfortable unless it's intense or, I really, really, really mean it. But after all the marginalized people, all the things that were brought out about what history has perpetuated, I mean, my heart broke open for all people. Like literally.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I feel a visceral difference And because of that, it's leading me towards the communications and, like all of you said, like living in the moment and listening to people and being brave, and all these things are all culmination from that one aspect of love for all of humanity, basically.
What I like about what I like about what you're saying is in the very pure, real sense of the word love, agape, there's nothing to earn. There's nothing to deserve. It's an already always there phenomenon, that the love that you're tapping into is the oxygen that allows, things to continue to grow and allows people to make progress in terms of trusting and being encouraged and empowerment. I love what you're saying, Lisa, because I think so many people have been taught and trained that you really have to be, not you, but some people are quite stingy with their love. You know what I'm saying? And they never get the experience of loving other people and being loved, in a lifetime. I mean, I've talked to people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. I wish I learned how to hug people at an earlier age. I don't do it very well these days, But
and now we've had that taken away from us, so it becomes even more important.
yes. If you have a near-death experience and you're not sure if you're going to live beyond a certain period of time, if you're not sure you're going to be alive tomorrow, the whole world changes in terms of its and what the word love actually means personally. But what you just mentioned is that whole idea where there's a shift in your body, and now the word love has transformed itself into something that you get in a completely different way than you ever have before. And I think that's powerful for people to listen to and to put some attention on. Good.
Anybody can do it.
Yeah, anyone can do it. Yes. It's the next chapter in the thing that we suck at, right?
Yeah. I'm not to suck at love.
Yeah. Maybe yeah, go ahead, Ken.
I was going to say the Buddhist view of that is like, even there's not really good or bad. It's just skillful and less skillful. So you're just not as skillful, not skillful as hugging. So implied in there is that if it's something you choose to practice, you'll get better at it, So it's not personal. It's just human. We're all afflicted with this thing we call being human,
The thing that's on my mind today is we watched a very profound and very moving movie last evening, and it was called Elizabeth is Missing. And I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to see this, but I highly recommend it. This is a woman who's going through the throes of Alzheimer's, and what her days look like, and the notes that she leaves for herself to re-cue her on what's important from day to day. It just piles and stacks of notes. I'm not going to tell you too much more about it, but all of the notes are intended to trigger inside of her what her commitment is and what her real what her life is really about. And nobody else in her family or nobody else in the community understands or gets it. But I really think that if you're interested in what I consider to be a pretty interesting get inside of somebody's life, and each day not remembering, with the person at the police department say, yes, you came in, we talked about this yesterday, and she goes, no, I've never been here before. But in the end of all of it, what people know and are unable to communicate to her while she's on this quest to find Elizabeth, who's gone missing, very dear friend, it's pretty powerful. So we're fortunate because we think we remember. Mm-hmm. We have that experience of remembering what's important to us. But my question to you is, do we really? Shelley, I can
really remember
the wheels turning and the smoke coming from your forehead.
Well, it's a memory, and I'm going to speak for myself. It's kind of, it flows. Like I remember, but what happens with mine is if it was really charged, it lightens up over time, and that's, everybody's different, but it's kind of like, okay, I can see that, and whether I choose to remember how bad it was or move into a different space and learn from that, right? I think that's where some people get stuck in this vicious little circle of doing the same thing over and over and not learning from it. Is the memory, we forget. And for me, as Ken said before, there is a light in everybody. Whether they're dark on the outside, there's good. There is good, and that's where I want to tap into. And wading through the dark, I can forget some of that, right? If I can get to the light. And so I know it's kind of an obscure kind of conversation that I brought up, but it's a memory is there. It's how we choose, or how it comes at us in that moment again, right? And again, it could be environment, it could be a scenario, it could be a smell, it could be whatever brings about that particular moment in time.
Sure. Yeah, conversations with people have that tendency too.
Yes, words.
Yeah.
Vanessa?
Something that I was reading recently, thank you, was just talking about the way our memory works. And every time our brains go to retrieve a memory, it changes a little bit. It actually works. So over time, our memory gets, and this happens. I don't think it's a symptom of Alzheimer's. I don't think it's, or dementia. I don't think it's that. I think it's just the way our brains work. I don't know why, but specifically, every time we go to retrieve a memory, our minds actually work to where the memory changes each time. And I just thought that was really interesting. And also, I know that, the way that Shelley, you were saying, as you bring back a memory, especially if it's a very emotional one, and that's how our greatest memories, like, I know, Bill, you talk about visceral memories a lot, or visceral experiences. And so if something becomes visceral, it's because it's been, there's so much emotion attached to it. And so that's when we remember things the most, is when there's so much emotion attached. And that's how you can get into, the realms of trauma or post-traumatic stress disorder or anything like that. But what's just fascinating is that as you, or even just going on, Shelley was saying, where you retrieve a memory, if it is an emotional one, especially, it just like, maybe part of the healing is in remembering, so that the trauma is lessened every time we remember it. And then if that theory of every time a memory is retrieved in the brain, it alters, and it probably gets a little bit less traumatic, a little bit softer, and so it almost heals. Each time you go back to it, because it's lessening in its strength. But at the same time, it's funny how it's warping. So then it's like anything that we actually remember, is it like, say someone's writing their memoir, for example, and they're writing about something that happened in their childhood. How many times have they retrieved that memory? And so how has it changed by the time they go to write it down and to share it as a story with someone else? And you can't prove your memory wrong necessarily, unless you have. I hope I'm not getting too far off subject, but
I don't think that's possible in this conversation. There's no off subject.
It's possible, yeah. Well, all right. But anyway, I just wanted to offer that contribution to you guys, because I thought that was really fascinating. Memory changes as we retrieve it.
So what's really,
I guess my point, you want me to just drive home a point, like, Vanessa, get to your point. Okay. I guess the point could be just that, we can't exactly trust our memory necessarily. I don't know. I was going to say something else, but I won't go there.
Yeah, I'm really dying to get this out. The
Go for
whole
it.
notion of memory,
Please do.
yeah, the whole notion of memory is complete fallacy. There is no such thing. Okay. The story that comes up when you think of somebody or think of something is the story that comes up when you think of somebody or think of something. You'll either remember that you thought that way before, which makes it seem more true for you, or you won't remember it. You'll just have that experience, the visceral experience that you now experience thinking of whatever that was, which may or may not be true. The psychological evaluations of 50 people reporting on seeing exactly the same incident, and then allowing them to evolve their stories to where they are, by continuously asking them, is there more, or are you sure, or those kinds of questions. They've proved that the so-called eyewitness report is only about 15% reliable. That over time,
Okay.
especially in great court cases where somebody you've got an eyewitness and it takes years for them to testify, what they've heard in conversation, what they've said over and over. And you and I have stories from our childhood that we've heard other people tell us when we were 1 or 2 years old that you now have vivid memories of. Your mind has created these beautiful pictures. I remember sitting in a galvanized tub, when I was 1 year old, while my dad was washing the car, and my mom was looking down from the second floor apartment window. I don't know. I mean, that's a story I've heard dozens of times. Is it possible that I've got a vivid imagination and I could actually paint, that story together? I don't know. And what I find really powerful in what you're saying, Vanessa, if you want to trust your own thinking, or you want to go out and examine, kick the can today and find out what's there today, I think that's the power between people. That, for instance, if there's something that you continuously remember over and over again, many times it comes from resisting that idea. What you resist persists, right? Everybody heard that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're good storytellers in terms of embellishing it and making it stronger, richer, faster, better. All of this, it's like, it's, and in the retelling of the story, sometimes things get added. The original story gets changed pretty dramatically. And I will refer to a very enlightening and interesting conversation that I had with my Aunt Eleanor at the last family reunion. Now, my mom's been passed since 2012. And so I wanted to check in with Eleanor, about some stories that my mom had told us, wonderful stories about how her dad would come home and kick the top of the door jamb, when he came through the doors, and then asked, who wants some love, So I asked Eleanor about it, and this kind of like very interesting smile curled up on her lips, and she said, Billy, your mom had the greatest talent for remembering things that never happened. So all of these things that live inside of my memory and heart, and all the rest of these stories that have been passed down again about my grandfather, your mileage may vary in terms of accuracy. All of which is that awareness, where are you putting your attention? Mm-hmm. And we know in order to survive on this earth, we have to be right about some things, right? And the more things that we're actually right about in our own mind, or we reconfirm with ourselves that we're right about those things, the more likely we're going to, defend that as part of our identity, those perceptions, right? All of that said, what does the world need now?
What the world needs now.
I was thinking that, yeah. Who was gonna do it? Who was gonna break into the song just now?
Love.
Bill's got it.
The only thing.
David and that beautiful Dionne Warwick. Unbelievable. Or maybe I made that up.
Isn't it the Carpenters? I don't know.
No, I think it's a Hal David, Burt Bacharach song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Released by Dionne Warwick.
Yeah.
So thanks for taking us into the love domain, Lisa. And thanks for expanding on all of that, because the neat part about love and energy and encouragement, these are renewable resources. I mean, you can create from nothing in language the experience of love.
All I could think of was like, we're all unique expressions of one humanity. So to celebrate all of that, to, like you said, our memories, our everything are all through our own filters, but everybody's got one. So, and we have to be individual, but we're part of a collective, and
yes,
just treat it that way.
I think a little bit more time finding the space within us where this was shared with me, where your head and your heart sing the same song, where, there's a feeling and there's an understanding that intersect, that at least in this moment you can hold as being true. So wrote a blog post about that one too. I feel like I've been writing about this stuff a lot, actually. It's been interesting. Yeah. I think I'm learning more than anyone that's bothering to read them.
That's the interesting part of introspection.
Yeah.
I don't know though. I do have, maybe this is a conversation for another day, Bill, but I do have a little bit of an issue with that expression, follow your heart, because, our hearts are actually, like our memories, they're kind of malleable, and they kind of, tell us we love one thing one day, and then either we confuse the definition of love, or we love something else the next day, and that's part of our human experience. But I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding between just 18 inches, between our heads and our hearts.
Yeah, and that's actually, it's interesting, because you can have the feeling or but you're right, you got to confirm with your head. That's where what I was told, so you can feel something is true, but you've got to go farther than that. There's got to be some kind of confirmation. So there's rigor that needs to be applied to it. You don't, or at the very least, follow your heart and then screw it up, and then learn from that with your head and make, but you need them both to be in agreement, not one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say,
right, yeah, agreed.
Your heart will never steer you wrong,
unless it does.
Well, right, but it's true. If it's in a path that doesn't work, then you've learned from that. It's not wrong. It's just that's not the right path. So it's kind of, to Ken's point, you got to kind of follow your heart, and then your head chimes in. If it's not right, then you've got to come back to square one. So I get the tug, right? The push and pull of that, but I think it takes both to make that statement true.
Yeah, I think there's also some confusion as to the level of discipline it requires to do that well. So, because just like, I talk to young entrepreneurs and they're like, I'm going to follow my passion. And it's like, yeah, that's not going to work out well for you. You have to learn to fall in love with the work, and the passion will come and go, and your heart will change, as you grow and learn different things. So there's a rigor, and I learned the hard way, because I thought I could just follow my heart and do what I love, all would be well. And no, that's unrealistic. It might work like on a micro level for a while, but eventually, you've got to develop, like a skill and a rigor and a discipline that you're willing to apply if you want to evolve,
So again,
right, and so that involves the head, and that involves, when we talk about mindset and keeping,
So I don't know.
Like you said, I like how you said those two kind of have to talk to each other and keep them in alignment.
Yep.
And go back and forth,
Yeah. Yep.
I humbly offer for your approval. You can't just be passionate about one thing. You either are passionate or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The passion that you bring to your life is what allows things to show up that agree with your intention, whether you know it or not. So when I work with business owners, they tell me I am trying to find out what I'm passionate about. How old are you? You're 52 years old. Where did you hear that? What are you passionate about? You know what I'm saying? So it's not conditional. Like love is not conditional. The passion is there when you generate it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's my humble opinion.
Yeah, that was actually Michael Singer's thing. His other thing was don't expect to go to work and find spirituality. Bring your spirituality to work. You know, it's in you. It's just to lock it and unleash it. And of course, sometimes the environment makes that difficult, and maybe it's the wrong environment for you, you know, or maybe you've changed and it used to be the right environment and it no longer is. All those things are okay. That's again, where's the agreement, and are we flexible, and do we have the adaptive resiliency to recognize it and continue to make choices that as best we can align with who we are and how that fits in with the world around us, you know?
The corollary to that is Jack Nicklaus in his book Golf My Way, a quote that he took from Ben Hogan is that most golfers go to the course to find their swing. The answer to that is you will not find it out here unless you brought it with you. So if you look at the really, really, really great golfers, what they found early on in their careers is perfection came from repeating tasks over and over and over and over, and being excited about the mundaneness of doing that. I remember Tiger Woods saying 2003, 2004, tournaments is how I get paid, but I love practicing.
Mm. Yeah, and I bet you the story they tell themselves is not that bad shot was because of the wind or the club or a bird chirp. They have good window and mirror maturity. You know, they look at themselves and say, okay, you know, what can I learn from that? How can I refine it? I'm sure that makes them great, you know?
And Tiger would say, I'm going home after I hit that shot exactly where I want to 5 times in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great level of personal accountability, you know, in that dimension.
Right.
And then take it back to even the percentage of how many times he didn't make it versus how many times he did, right? It's even the Michael Jordan theory. I've failed a million more times than I've succeeded. But you know, he learned from those that was his whole point, you know, from those what he called failures. You learn from them and then you turn them into success. But that's same old.
Another quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Wayne Gretzky.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is true.
Well, we're getting to the top. Actually, we're learning a little bit over, but what a great conversation. Anybody have any last thoughts that you'd like to bring out?
Don't be afraid to suck at being human.
There you go.
Start and end with that.
Part of being human.
Now that it's time to say goodbye to you, I just realized how much I've missed all of you and our conversations and just how much fun it is to be in your presence. Lisa, I love you. Shelley, I love you. Ken, I love you. And Vanessa, I love you.
Namaste.
Beautiful.
Too, Bill.
Beautiful.
Thank you. We love you too.
Light the world on fire, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, candle going.
There we go.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a world that works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can hear us at exvadio.com/podcasts, Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.